Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, and check Tarpley.net during these times of increasing economic and military crisis. So the Oedipal problem described by Jeffrey Goldberg in The Atlantic in this article, which is receiving a lot of attention, is probably the main warmonger gambit of this past week, coming out on the Internet and in the September edition of the print Atlantic. The father of Netanyahu, now 100 years old, this father, Ben Zion Netanyahu, was Jabotinsky's secretary. We're not told whether he benefited from the training given to the Jabotinsky people by Benito Mussolini and his Italian regime. It's seen as a gambit to create problems for the British in the Middle East. But apparently Netanyahu trembles before the judgment of this draconian and austere father, the father being a historian of the Spanish Inquisition. And indeed, when you look at this, you're reminded of the Grand Inquisitor, in particular the Grand Inquisitor as you can see him in Verdi's Don Carlo, a very sinister figure. Anyway, the father is supposedly an absolute advocate of military force. At one point he says, "We put our faith in military power." Well, that is a strange way to describe a project which was supposedly motivated by religious belief. But there it is. We put our faith in military power. I think the Bible says something about living by the sword. But leave that aside. The Iranian threat, of course, is that the Iranians make all these threats. This article does not, it tells you about the Iranian threats, but they don't tell you that somebody like Avigdor Lieberman in the Israeli cabinet has made similar threats. If you say bomb the Aswan High Dam and essentially wash away most of the population of Egypt, that's pretty apocalyptic. Those don't get mentioned. They do quote Rafsanjani saying, well, we can absorb these nuclear hits. Right? He's sort of a modern-day Iranian Mao. You've also got a meeting with Rahm Emanuel, Ben Rhodes, and others in the White House, where the Atlantic guy says, people don't believe you guys are tough, and they all try to say, oh, yeah, we're tough, we're tough. Sarkozy comes out of this as a much better warmonger. There are doubts in the Pentagon. There are supposedly doubts with the Israeli commander Ashkenazi, who's in talks with Mullen. Watch out for deception operations at every level of this. We're also told that one of the reasons that Dennis Blair, had to go was that he was more of a hawk than Obama and wanted Obama to give assurances to the generals about this. So the outcome of this, by the time we get to the end of the article, it's not just better than 50% chance, it's that the attack is a near certainty. The attack, a near certainty. Missing from this article, do the Iranian nuclear weapons actually exist? Is there such a program? Not proven. The threats from Iran, the Israeli threats from Iran, well, aren't those more or less balanced by Israeli threats to Iran? If you wanted to do a thorough search, I'm sure you'd find them. What are the actual power relations? Is it credible to say that one state with one or two nuclear weapons can threaten another state with 2, 3, 500? Is that proportional? Also, the Israeli layered anti-ballistic missile system. That's the one that Shimon Peres cites. They interviewed, along with Netanyahu and many, many others. Goldberg has interviewed Shimon Peres, who says we can build an anti-missile defense system, plus the U.S. will bail us out. The U.S. will attack Iran before we do. The Israelis feel threatened? Well, I guess the Iranians feel threatened as well. So that leaves us with the world going towards the abyss at the end of this entire article, despite the voices, timid voices, minority voices here and there, that this would not be a good thing. Now, James Fallows, obviously responding to criticism in The Atlantic, says, well, we're being accused of warmongering because we put this article in here. It's true that Goldberg was a big supporter of the Iraq attack. Fallows' line is, it's never too late to launch the bombing. You can always delay the bombing, but once you've done it, then you're in the soup. And then it's too late to take it back. And he refers to the study done by Anthony Cordesman and Abdullah Toukan of the Center for Strategic International Studies, CSIS, dated March 2009, study of Israeli attack on Iranian nuclear assets, showing that it's likely not to work as well as they think, and it would require essentially a long bombing campaign, and I think really an endless bombing campaign. So there's where we are, and the only answer is various people around the world. That's Castro says he's trying to use the Cuban the diplomatic corps to get people to speak up against it, and Castro says he wants to focus world protests on Obama, telling him not to do it. I guess given the state of the world mentality, that's fine. Obviously, listeners to this program are not going to put any stock in Obama, but rather in primary challenges, political challenges, and indeed, if we look at Sarkozy certainly hamstrung by the L'Oréal Betancourt scandal to some extent. In the case of Obama, you've got, if you want to stop a war, maybe you need a Watergate to stop a war, and the raw material for Watergate is all over the place, as we know. It's in the form of the Resco Chicago corruption story, which is so close to the surface in the Blagojevich trial, where we seem to be headed towards a hung jury, which may then lead to other revelations. This question of the birth certificate and the qualification to serve. We'll hear from Phil Berg about that in just a minute. And, of course, then the Larry Sinclair accusations, the question of Obama's harem in the White House. Why did Michelle storm off to Marbella, such a tremendous public relations snafu for the regime? Was she acting out that she's not happy with something which is going on? So there we have it. Get active or get radioactive. Now, shifting gears. Wall Street tremors this week, right? We had a 3% down day of the New York markets, and we had basically a 2.5% to 3% down day from Japan to Western Europe, the main ones, to Wall Street. Now, that came the day after the Federal Reserve had announced that the, quote, recovery, unquote, was losing steam. This was a very anemic recovery, not going anywhere, getting weaker and weaker. I would simply say that's the second wave of the world economic depression, dear Fed boys. But the Fed says that they are going to make sure that there's plenty of hot money, as these various mortgage-backed securities and Treasury securities that they've bought up over the last couple of years to increase liquidity, right? Because when they buy the Treasury paper, then money goes into the banking system. And similarly for the mortgage-backed derivatives, they are going to keep buying those. They're going to keep them steady. I imagine they're actually going to increase them. We'll see what they do. That, of course, means hot money. That, of course, means more weakness for the dollar. We've also had very bad unemployment statistics in the past couple of weeks. The U.S. trade deficit is now up to $50 billion a month once again. Imports are declining, and imports are up and exports are down. And basically all of the economic statistics look very bad. Unemployment is actually, seems to me, rising, and it's well over 17% in real terms. Maybe it's up to 21, 22, 23%, I think, is the most realistic if you want to include everything. So the second wave of the depression. Now, within this, we're about 3 months away now. In the behind us, we have the flash crash of May 6th. And then the May 11th peak of the attack on the euro. May 11th, according to the Wall Street Journal, was the day when there were most short sale contracts out against the euro. Now, since then, the euro has strengthened. The euro has gone up to about $1.31. Now, the euro has taken a beating over the last couple of days, but I don't think that's conclusive, although it may be. The basic idea is the U.S. and the British had thought that they could master this situation by having a blitzkrieg against the euro, by smashing the euro, attacking through Greece,